In the heart of the bustling city, where luxury cars rolled past street beggars without a glance, a boy named David lived in the shadows. Barefoot, ragged, and hungry, his only companion was a loyal brown dog named Jane. Every day, David begged near the market square, hoping for scraps. Some ignored him. Others mocked him. Only Jane, wagging her tail and curling beside him at night, gave him warmth. One afternoon, David spotted a convoy of black SUVs pulling up near a boutique. Out stepped Mrs. Blessing Omego, elegant, draped in jewels, her face stern. By her side was her daughter, Rachel, cheerful and innocent. David, desperate for food, approached cautiously. "Madam, please, just a little money for bread. Me and my dog haven't eaten." Mrs. Omego's eyes narrowed. She pulled Rachel close. "Keep away from us, filthy boy. People like you should not be anywhere near us." David bowed his head in shame. Jane growled softly, sensing his pain. Rachel, however, tugged at her mother's hand. "But Mommy, he looks hungry. Can't we give him something?" Mrs. Omego's tone was sharp. "No, Rachel. People like him are lazy. If you give them today, they'll beg tomorrow. Stay away." The words cut David like a knife. He pulled Jane close, whispering, "Don't worry, girl. Someday, they'll see we're not nothing." Unbeknownst to him, fate was already weaving the threads that would tie his destiny to the Omego family forever. Days later, the school bell rang, releasing children into the evening air. Parents' cars lined the road, engines humming, chauffeurs waiting. But Rachel Omego stood alone, her pink backpack on her shoulder, confusion on her face. "Where's Mr. Sunday?" "Daddy's car is always here," she whispered. Minutes ticked by. Then a black van rolled up. The window slid down, and Mr. Sunday, her father's trusted driver, smiled. "Rachel, sorry I'm late. Get in." Her brow furrowed. "But Daddy said you always come in the Lexus, not this van." Before she could question further, two rough men jumped out, grabbing her arms. "Move, girl. Your father will pay plenty for you," she screamed, kicking wildly. "Help, somebody help me." Passers-by froze in fear. But across the street, David's head snapped up. He saw everything. "Jane," he hissed. "Come on." Like a bullet, David sprinted. Jane charged beside him, barking ferociously. The kidnappers sneered. "Just a beggar boy and his mutt. Get rid of them." One man swung a stick, but Jane sank her teeth into his leg. He howled, stumbling back. David grabbed a broken bottle from the gutter and swung it at the second man, forcing him to drop Rachel. "Run, Jane. Guard her." David shouted. Jane circled Rachel, barking fiercely, forcing the men to retreat. From the van, Mr. Sunday shouted in rage. "Fools, grab her now. Chief will pay triple." But the commotion drew attention. Fruit sellers hurled stones, neighbors shouted, "Thieves! Kidnappers!" The men panicked. Sirens wailed in the distance. Abandoning their plan, they scrambled into the van and sped away. Rachel collapsed, trembling. She looked up at David through tears. "You saved me." David nodded, panting. "Couldn't just watch them take you." Jane licked her hand, wagging gently. Moments later, Chief Omego arrived in his convoy. He rushed forward, grabbing Rachel in his arms. "My daughter! Are you hurt?" She sobbed into his chest. "Daddy, they tried to take me. But David and Jane saved me." Chief turned sharply, his eyes falling on the boy and his dog. He swallowed hard, emotion flickering across his face. "You saved my daughter, when my own driver betrayed me. David, I owe you more than I can ever repay." But behind him, Mrs. Omego's cold gaze lingered on David. Her lips pressed in disgust. "This street boy again," she muttered. David and Jane had proven their worth. But stepping into the Omego family's world would awaken new battles, against class, pride, and hidden dangers. Chief Omego, grateful beyond words, invited David and Jane to the mansion. David's eyes widened at the towering gates, the marble floors, the chandeliers that sparkled like stars. Rachel clung to Jane happily. "Daddy, can we keep them? Please?" Chief chuckled. "They'll be welcome here any time." But Mrs. Blessing's voice cut like ice. "Chief, we cannot bring a street child into this house. He does not belong here. And that dog, filthy, dangerous." Chief frowned. "Blessing, he saved your daughter. Show respect." But she turned away, her heart hardened. Narrator, somber though. David entered the house. He quickly learned he was not welcome in all hearts. Only Rachel treated him like a brother. Only Chief Omego honored him. Jane, sensing hostility, growled whenever Mrs. Omego passed. The divide had begun. Days passed. David adjusted slowly to mansion life. He studied books Rachel shared with him. He ate at their table, though Mrs. Omego never looked his way. Jane became Rachel's constant playmate, chasing her in the garden, guarding her as she slept. But Mrs. Omego remained cold. She scolded the servants for letting that dog inside. She sneered at David's clothes. "You can dress him, Chief, but he will never be like us." David overheard once. His heart sank, but Jane pressed her head against his lap, reminding him he wasn't alone. It was almost midnight when the storm began to fade. The city was silent again, except for the dripping of rain on the mansion roof and the faint hum of crickets. Headlights cut across the wet driveway as Mrs. Blessing Omego's black SUV pulled in through the tall iron gates. The housekeeper hurried with an umbrella, greeting her as she stepped out gracefully, her gown glimmering under the soft light. In her left hand, she carried a small velvet case, her new gold and diamond jewelry set from an exclusive auction earlier that evening. She admired it proudly before locking the car. But in the distance, at the edge of the street, a dark figure stood under a flickering streetlight. His hood shadowed his face. He watched as she entered the mansion. When the gates closed behind her, he quietly stepped forward. Inside, Chief Omego sat in the living room, reading the newspaper. "You came back late," he said, glancing up. "The auction took longer than expected," she replied. "But it was worth it." She opened the case, showing him the sparkling jewels. Chief smiled faintly. "Just make sure you keep them safe. You know these things attract attention." Upstairs, little Rachel was already asleep. In the servant quarters, David and Jane lay on a mat near the door. David was drifting in and out of sleep, listening to the raindrops. Jane's body rose and fell gently beside him. A gust of wind rattled the window. Jane's ears twitched, but she relaxed again. Outside the mansion, the stranger slipped silently through the side gate, now unlatched by the storm. His boots splashed through puddles as he made his way toward the rear entrance. He knew the house, or at least he had studied it from afar. He had followed Mrs. Omego from the auction, certain she had brought her new treasures home. As the lights went out one by one inside the mansion, the intruder melted into the shadows. The Omego mansion was deep in sleep. Thunder rolled faintly in the distance as clouds drifted across the moon. Downstairs, the clock struck 2 a.m. David turned on his side. He couldn't sleep. The sound of creaking would kept echoing through the walls. Jane's ears perked up. She stood suddenly, head tilted toward the back door. David whispered, "What is it, Jane?" A faint metallic click, the handle of the rear door turning slowly. David's heart pounded. Someone was inside. Jane growled softly, her body low and tense. David held her collar, whispering, "Shoo, not yet." From the dark hallway, the intruder emerged. Dressed in black, gloves on, he carried a small flashlight, scanning the furniture, the portraits, the stairs. His eyes gleamed with greed. He knew exactly what he was looking for, the jewelry. David crouched behind a chair, trembling. He thought of waking Chief Omego, but he was afraid to make a sound. Jane tugged forward, ready to act. The man tiptoed up the staircase, careful not to wake anyone. But he didn't notice Jane following silently behind, her nails clicking softly against the marble floor. When the intruder reached the top floor, he found the jewelry box on the dresser, just as he expected. He stuffed it quickly into his bag. But as he turned, his flashlight beam caught David standing in the hallway, wide-eyed, with Jane beside him. "Who are you?" David's voice cracked with fear. The man froze, then dashed toward the stairs. Jane barked loudly, the sound echoing through the halls. Lights flicked on upstairs. David ran to the balcony, shouting, "Chief! Madam! Somebody's in the house!" The intruder panicked and tried to flee, but slipped on the wet tiles, dropping the jewelry box with a crash. Jane darted forward, standing between him and the open door, barking furiously. Chief Omego stormed out of his room in his night robe, flashlight in hand. Mrs. Blessing Omego followed, clutching her shawl, terrified. "What's going on?" she gasped. When they reached the staircase, they saw David standing at the bottom, phone in hand, shaking but steady. The intruder was cornered near the door, Jane blocking his path. "Stop right there!" Chief shouted. The man hesitated for a second, then bolted toward the side exit. But before he could slip out, the estate guards rushed in, alerted by David's call. Within moments, the intruder was caught. Chief Omego turned to David, still catching his breath. You did this?" David nodded shyly. "Jane heard something. I just followed." Mrs. Blessing Omego stared in disbelief. Her jewelry box lay open on the floor, the gold pieces scattered. She looked at David, the same dusty boy she once ignored in the streets, and tears welled in her eyes. When the guards led the thief away, the mansion fell silent again. Chief placed a hand on David's shoulder. "You saved us, son." David blinked, unable to speak. Jane wagged her tail and leaned against him. Mrs. Omego whispered softly, "And your dog too." She looked at Jane, her eyes softening for the first time. Morning arrived with golden sunlight. The sky was clear after the storm. The Omego mansion, once tense, now felt peaceful. Rachel ran across the garden laughing as Jane chased after her, her tail wagging with joy. David sat nearby, finally smiling without fear. Mrs. Blessing Omego walked out to the garden, holding a small box wrapped in gold paper. Chief followed her quietly. David stood when he saw her, unsure how to act. Mrs. Omego smiled, a real smile this time, and said, "David, come here." He hesitated but walked closer. She opened the box and revealed a small gold pendant. "This belonged to my mother," she said gently. "It's always been my reminder to be kind, something I forgot." She placed the pendant in his hand. "From today, you are part of this family." David's eyes filled with tears. "Thank you, Ma." Rachel ran up and hugged him tightly. Jane barked once, circling them happily. Chief Omego rested his hand on David's shoulder. "Bravery doesn't come from wealth," Chief said. "It comes from heart, and you've shown us more heart than we could ever repay." As the camera pulled back, the four of them, Chief, Mrs. Omego, Rachel, and David, stood together in the golden light, with Jane lying peacefully by their side. The mansion gleamed in the background, no longer just a symbol of riches, but of newfound love and unity. Sometimes, the smallest hearts shine brightest when the world goes dark. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like the video. Share it with your friends. Subscribe to our channel for more emotional and inspiring stories. Your support helps us create more amazing content. Thank you for watching.